Welcome to the complete guide to the dead bug exercise. The dead bug is a foundational core stability exercise that is dynamic in nature. So we're moving our arms and our legs, and it targets the abdominals, the anterior core. And in this video, we're going to feature a 6-step progression for the dead bug. And after that, we're going to show you 6 variations on the dead bug that we are big fans of. So Travis, how do we start with this progression for dead bug?
Yeah. So with the dead bug, we are moving our arms and our legs in the traditional version. But to start to regress the exercise to find the version that's right for the person in front of you, to start at the most basic level, we can just move the arms or the legs first. So I like to typically start with just the arm movement. So to get into the dead bug position, that's going to be the same for all 12 of the variations that we show. Jenni's lying on her back. She will lift her feet off the ground to make a 90-degree angle at her knees, and then she'll raise her hands up towards the ceiling. So that's the base dead bug position for all variations. And then the first variation, Jenni will lower her one arm towards the floor. She can tap or hover off the floor, and then she'll return to the start, and then she'll move the opposite arm. So all of the while, the key with all of these versions is that she's keeping her low back pressed into the ground, which is going to keep her abs engaged. So that's level 1. Level 2, she will keep her arms still, but she's going to perform a heel slide. So for this version, you will need some sort of sliding apparatus. So we have a towel on hardwood, but you could use a paper plate on carpet. You could use a furniture slider. So actually for this one, Jenni's going to have both of her feet on the floor, and then she's going to keep the arms overhead, keep the back pressed into the ground, and slide the one foot out. And so as she slides out, the lever arm is increasing, and there's going to be a stimulus that wants to arch her back, but she's keeping that back pressed into the ground. So this one, we just do one side at a time. If you had 2 furniture sliders underneath each foot, then you could alternate.
I really felt that.
Nice.
Yes.
So for the next one, we will also move just the legs. So we'll start in that base position with hands overhead and knees bent, and we call these heel taps. So Jenni is going to keep her arms still as she taps the heel down, and then she'll tap to the other side. So again, core is engaged, back is pressed into the floor, and the only thing that's moving is the legs alternating. So now we've shown the arms only, the legs only, and now we can bring those together to create the arms and legs. And the key here with all of the ones moving forward is that's going to be opposite arm and leg. So actually for this one, I like to start with just a heel tap. So we'll go right arm, left leg, heel tap. So building off of the ones that we've done before, and then opposite arm each time. So this is just, as you can see, it's the combination of the arm movement and the leg movement, keeping the low back pressed into the floor. And for some people, just this motion right here will be challenging to coordinate. They might have a hard time figuring out that cross body motion. And what I also see a lot of the times is that as the arm goes overhead and the other leg goes down, they have a tendency to want to move the non-working arm towards the floor. So you're trying to avoid that. So that's heel taps plus arms. And then the next version is what I would call the base version. This is kind of what I would consider a classic dead bug. So this is going to be arms and legs again, but instead of doing the heel tap, we're going to straighten the leg as we lower. So again, right arm, left leg, and then left arm, right leg. But now the difference is that as the leg comes down, the knee extends or straightens, and then we just hover that heel off the floor of a couple inches. So this is like the baseline version, but this is pretty tough, which is why it's nice to have those 4 versions that we have before to work up to this one. So if that version gets to be very doable for someone, then they can go into what I would consider the progression from the base version, which is a straight leg dead bug the entire time. So from here, Jenni's legs are straight, and then she performs the same motion arm and leg, keeping the non-working leg straight up towards the ceiling. And now she has a long lever the entire time. So not just starting from the bent knee and going to the straight leg, but keeping both legs straight. So this is the hardest version. And Jenni also will feel a hamstring stretch on the side of the non-working leg, which is a nice added bonus. One other thing, you can relax. You've just done 6
I know, I
challenging
really
dead
feel
bug
that.
variations. One other thing that you can layer onto this is thinking about the breathing. So as you're performing the dead bug, as you're reaching into the lengthened position, think about exhaling. A strong exhale will further engage the core in that lengthened position. So that would be our progression from 1 to 6. And those would kind of be the variations of the dead bug that you'd want to work through, at least up to the second to last one that we showed. But if you wanted to layer on just a different flavor, we're going to now show 6 other variations. So the first one we're going to show is with a physio ball. And if you didn't have a physio ball, you could also use a yoga block. But I really like the physio ball. So what Jenni's going to do is she has the ball between her arms and her thighs, and then she'll perform the version of the dead bug where her knees start bent and then straighten as she goes. So what the ball does, or what Jenni's trying to do, is she's trying to crush that ball. So she's really squeezing the ball. She's pushing the ball with her forearm into her thigh, and then she's pulling her thigh into her forearm. And what that does is it almost creates a crunch stimulus, like you're isometrically crunching through the core while you're also creating that anti-extension stimulus from the low back. Hard?
Yeah, I stopped before you were done talking about it.
That's good. So next up, we have a dead bug with a reach, and we're going to use a kettlebell for this version. And you could use a dumbbell, you could use a metal plate, whatever weight you have. And because we're reaching with the kettlebell towards the ceiling, the arms are not going to move. The next one we show will be with arm movement. So this is just legs. And what the reach does is it further emphasizes that flexion of the core, again, kind of like a crunch. So Jenni's just reaching up towards the ceiling, and that's going to keep her low back engaged, or core engaged, low back pressed into the ground as she moves the legs. So you can actually keep that kettlebell because the next one is going to also be with the kettlebell. This builds off of the reach. So this is called the dead bug pullover. Jenni will perform a pullover, which is lowering the weight overhead with her arms straight. That exercise can be done without the leg movement, but by incorporating the dead bug, now we get this huge stimulus to the anterior core, the abs, because we have 20 pounds in this case. You could use any weight, but we have 20 pounds that's further trying to bring her low back off the ground to arch, and she's keeping that engagement. The next one up, we have an exercise or a dead bug variation called a core engaged dead bug. So all of them are core engaged dead bugs,
That's
but
right.
this one is, instead of doing a dynamic pullover, Jenni's going to do a static pullover. So she has her resistance band anchored to a kettlebell behind her. You could anchor a band to any sturdy object, and then she's isometrically pulling down on the band, or pulling the band forward. So that's the pull down, isometric pull down, as she performs her dead bug legs. So again, that pull down further engages the abs and adds another layer to that dead bug. And then the next one we have is called a diagonal dead bug. So for the diagonal dead bug, instead of going straight down in the sagittal plane, Jenni's going to take her arm and leg off at an oblique angle on a diagonal, kind of like thinking about making a star shape. So opposite arm and leg again. And now, whereas all of our other variations, it was just forward and backward trying to arch us, this one, there's a bit of a rotational or an anti-rotational element to it.
Yeah, it's like trying to pull me off.
Mm-hmm. So she's keeping that non-working arm and leg still as she performs those lowers on the diagonal. And then our last but not least variation with our complete guide to our dead bug is the reverse crunch dead bug combo, or the dead bug reverse crunch combo. So Jenni will perform a regular dead bug, arm and leg, and then opposite arm and leg. And then she'll mix that up with a reverse crunch. So hands go down. She performs her reverse crunch, lifting her hips off the ground, reaching her knees towards her shoulders. And then she goes back and forth. So dead bug one side, dead bug the other side, and then the reverse crunch. And this just is another way to target the abs in kind of our static hold position, and then into alternating with the dynamic movement. So that is our complete guide to dead bugs. Jenni, how do you feel after those 12 dead bug variations?
I feel like my core may be a little sore, and it's thanking me for this great attention. It's great to work with all those different variations, and I really appreciate all the cues that you offered.
Oh, well, thank you. I had never seen such a complete guide before, so
Exactly.
that's why we wanted to put this together.
The most complete guide ever.
Yeah, just to show you from beginning to end, and then a bunch of other options.